We have risen from the ashes to school the masses. Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the Scholars Wrestling Show, episode 234. I am your man behind the microphone, Scholar Jeff, and as you can probably see if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm flying solo today. Yes, it's one of those weeks where life hits us hard, life comes at us from all directions, swerves us in a very Russo-esque manner. But you know what? It's times like this, as you've seen with Scholar Tark in the past, the show must go on. So here I am, especially this week, when we're bringing you lots of the latest in the world of professional wrestling. And this, make no mistake about it, was one major news week. In ways you might already know, and some other ways that may have surprised you. Something may have flown or fallen through the cracks. Hey, you know how it goes. But this is what we're here to do. We're here to rein in the good, the bad, the indifferent, the weird, the crazy, the fun, all of it, here on the Scholars of Wrestling Show. So I guess we can qualify it as this, but let's face it, I haven't done this in a while. I feel like I'm doing it. This is the way we like to kick off every single bit of stuff, flotsam, jetsam, whatever you want to call it. This is a little segment we like to call Backstage News. That's right, where we take a peek behind the curtain and check in a little backstage news. I know what you're thinking, and no, it's not the same without the other two scholars by my side. Miss you, brothers. Hope to see you back in action soon. In the meantime, we got a week in professional wrestling to talk about, don't we? Yes, we do. The top of the list is undoubtedly the biggest news of the week. That is the latest with All Elite Wrestling, AEW. They just recently, this past week, just had their rally to reveal more details about the upcoming promotion. Many details were discussed, including some early signings, the announcement that seemed to address a lot of the early fans' concerns, including some things that were on a lot of people's minds, including the pay structure, that there would be no pay gap, that all that would be given forth, pay structures would just be based on merit alone, which, hearing some confirmation of that, is absolutely fabulous. There was some little uncertainty about what that was actually intended to mean, and Brandy Rhodes herself went on Twitter to clarify her statements, saying that that pay would be even across the board, but it would still be divided up by merit, not gender. There would be no gender pay gap. An entry-level person would be given entry-level pay regardless of male or female gender, which, let's face it, just really reflects the values of not just of the times, but of the sensibilities of the average wrestling fan, which absolutely is fine by me. But the biggest news of that week is undoubtedly the signing of one Chris Jericho to a legitimate full-time contract with AEW. While this was certainly in the realm of possibility, I think it still came as a surprise to a lot of people, myself included, even though we thought, you know what, this absolutely sounds like something Chris Jericho would do, or could do, but did he do it? Well, the answer is yes, he did. As he elaborated later on in various mediums, he is absolutely one of those guys who already made his big money and can afford to essentially do what he wants to do and expand his creative consciousness and what he does, remixing not just for personal and professional gain, but also for himself, which is a very, very enviable place to be in. If you're already got your money, you're not worried about finding work or doing something, or just being able to self-actualize and be the best performer you can be. And continuing performing at a high level like Chris Jericho has been, that's, hey, everyone wins there, except for possibly Vince McMahon, but let's face it, given the tight relationship between Chris Jericho and Vince McMahon over the years, I'd be shocked if it came to be that he didn't already know about this and this was not already discussed in great detail. But either way, things seem to be off to an amazing start, including the rumors that they could be close to a TV deal. The actual TV station that they're on, a lot of people are saying, there's a rumor going around saying TNT. Jericho, on doing the radio rounds this week, has said that there is talks of a serious TV deal on the table. Where that will be, we don't know for certain yet. But the current ongoing rumor is that they're looking at TNT or some other Turner-owned station. Now, longtime wrestling fans are going to hear a Turner Broadcasting Company, and they're going to think Monday Night Wars, WCW all over again. Well, for those of you who have been following on wrestling Twitter lately, the opinions about this seem to be remarkably split, no matter who you are or where you are. It came out this past week that Dave Meltzer seemed to believe that, when prompted about, hey, could AEW actually compete with WWE? His response, which was met with a fair bit of mixed reactions, was, in Dave Meltzer's mind, he believes that you would need to see at least about 2 months minimum before you can make it anywhere near of an accurate prediction as far as could AEW compete with WWE in the long run. Now, I've seen very, very mixed reactions from all sorts of people all across the internet or the Twitterverse, whatever you want to call it. And there is no middle reaction, no tepid feelings about this. There seems to be quite a lot of disbelief that this could be an accurate reflection of, oh, how could you possibly know in 2 months whether or not AEW is going to be able to hang with WWE? Well, that's the thing. You don't. He's just using that as an indicator, as the earliest possible time you could ever make anything resembling an educated guess as far as can AEW hang with WWE in any capacity. We're going to need to see at least 2 months by his estimation regarding how they run their business, and most importantly, what kind of shows they produce. So, again, it's way too early to really say for any certainty at all, especially when, hey, the ebb and flow of business and wrestling as a whole, especially as a creative medium, is changing by the day. So, all I know is this is an absolutely thrilling time to be a wrestling fan. I think that goes without saying, and it's just not worth getting hyped up about, and it's not worth getting angry at each other. Wrestling is great, and this is a great time to be a wrestling fan. The only person it's better to be a wrestling fan these days is probably Kenny Omega, who, as of this recording, that would be January 11th, as of this day in history, Kenny Omega has not publicly declared his signing with any particular company. He is reportedly done, for the moment, with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He has not signed with WWE. He has not been announced for anything with AEW. I would be shocked if he went to Impact or Ring of Honor at this point. I don't think it's an unfair assessment to say that at this point, in this time, Kenny Omega is absolutely the most number one hottest free agent in professional wrestling today. And all eyes are on him, especially now after the AEW announcement and the fallout from Wrestle Kingdom 13. The big question on everybody's mind is, where is Kenny Omega going to go? And that, to me, is reliant on one primary question. Does Kenny Omega have a price? Now, I know a lot of you are thinking that old $1 million man adage, everyone's got a price. Well, yes and no. One thing has shown us is that Kenny Omega is a very passionate man. He stands by his principles, and he knows what makes him truly happy. Now, with a lot of people, especially in this corporate working environment that is modern professional wrestling in 2019, that basically comes down to what you want to do and how much money you want to make. If you want to make the most money possible, get the biggest exposure on the biggest stage, while also riding the risk of being in a publicly traded company with writers out the wazoo, you conforming to another's image. If you can do that, if you're happy in that kind of working environment and you're willing to roll the dice, if you can thrive in a very constricted type of environment, then WWE is for you. Some people have shown that they can do that. Like the John Cenas, like the Hulk Hogans. If you can conform, if you can twist who you are into that kind of environment, then hey, WWE is probably going to be for you. If you've got a little heartfelt character, if you've got something that doesn't really fit into one set corporate mold, if that is important to you, and if your ability to stay relevant is tied up in that, and in wrestling in a very specific style or presenting yourself in a certain way, then maybe somewhere else may be for you. You may or may not make as much money, but the ceiling is higher, but the challenges are much higher as well. You're going to have to basically be more of a self-made person. If that is more of your speed, then I can see you enjoying some other company as a workplace. So far, I personally have every reason to believe that Kenny Omega is one of the latter. Kenny Omega is not an unobservant man. He is not an unintelligent man. He knows, as much as anyone could, what the potentiality of working for WWE versus any other place on the earth. He's already worked for New Japan. He's already won the New Japan World title, the IWGP Championship. Now, the question is, if he's not going to stay with New Japan, which, quite frankly, to me, seemed like the place where he would be the absolute happiest, but if he is looking for greener pastures, if he's looking for the next step in his career, then possibly WWE could be that place. But I don't think so. If he's looking strictly for the money, if WWE cuts him a massive check and a massive contract with a whole lot of zeros, then if he sees the writing on the wall to make the most money possible, then he very well could do that. However, my money as of right now, I'm not totally convinced. If there's any way at all that Kenny Omega could make comparable money working anywhere else, especially with his friends in AEW, right now my money is on that. If he can make comparable money while retaining that same sense of creative freedom that he could have elsewhere, like in AEW, with the Khan family, another family of billionaires backing him, then that very well could be where he goes next. But, as we all know, as of this day, the story is still ongoing. But those, of course, are the serious ones. Now we have to tackle the smaller, the tinier details, the tinier stories that maybe you missed this past week in wrestling. Such as the announcement of one theme for NXT TakeOver Phoenix. Now, you may be asking yourself, Scholar Jeff, what's so big about that? Well, this time it's due to the unconventional nature of the act that they've selected as one of their theme providers. If you're remotely interested into the weird and macabre sort of things that you can find on YouTube these days, you may be aware of Poppy, the reportedly self-aware pop star, the manufactured, Illuminati-worshipping pop starlet who is completely robotic and is exactly what you want to be.